Guten Tag, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren. Es freut mich sehr, Sie hier begrüßen zu dürfen. Ich präsentiere 50 plus Döner.
Oops, sorry for the beginning. Sorry I'm popular. One second. Okay, good. Hello. I hope you are doing well. I hope if you did watch Women's World Cup last night in the U.S., that you had some restful sleep at 4 in the morning. Work wasn't too hard. Yeah. Oops. We're gonna stall for a little bit. This is gonna be like kind of a short show. All we're doing is a Heidenheim thing. We're not doing anything else. Although we are doing we are going to be back next week. So summer's over, which is in the soccer sense, it's over. Zweite Bundesliga starts next weekend, so we are back to weekly next week, starting today. But obviously, we're back at every Thursday from here on out. I hate I hate how this camera goes in and out. Lemon's ass. I'm fully invested in this team because my last name is their name, and yeah, I don't get that very often. Yeah, Heidenheim. That's a interesting last name. I wonder how like you got that last name. The last name Heidenheim. That's a good. I like that last name. Is that something that like people get? What I was wondering in researching this is if it's like difficult for people. You know how like Americans don't really put effort into pronouncing or spelling people's last name correctly. I wonder if Heidenheim is one of those ones. Like, do people know how to spell Heidenheim? Obviously, I was really into researching this. All right, I've stalled enough. Well, Lemon's S, thank you for watching as well. Let's just jump into it, shall we? Because if you don't know, I'll give you one guess where my dad's side of the family came from. I am going to have to say Germany. I'm not 100% positive, and if it's a trick question, if it's like Austria or something, I did run into that one. All right, enough of my fucking bullshit. We have Heidenheim time. Please ignore that these are not the club colors. I tried very hard to change the like colors of this fucking this fucking presentation, but it did not do it. Whatever. All right, Heidenheim time. So who the fuck is Heidenheim? So the Heidenheim. Well, actually, I'm gonna go back because I think some people. I just realized that like this might be, even if you've watched the league, this may be your first time ever even seeing this team's logo. Yeah, this is Heidenheim. This is their logo. We're going to like where they are and stuff like that. But I just realized in the presentation, none of their like logos and shit are in there. But this is what their logo looks like. This is, we'll get into this, but this is what their like jerseys are like and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's like the visual part of that. But so, interesting thing. So even though on their logo it said 18 whatever, that's not true. That's actually when their gymnastics program started, which is very typical of German clubs. Like their formation was actually gymnastics before soccer even happened. But this one started the actual soccer team of Heidenheim started in 1910 when local engineers working for the Voith Group started VfB Heidenheim. So they're named a little different. Right now it's FC Heidenheim, but they started out, the ones that we know and love, we started out as VfB Heidenheim. And in between then, it gets really confusing. You have to remember this is a lower league team that was like primarily in the fifth division. So there was a lot of changing of names and stuff like that. I didn't want to like get stuck on what the names were. But all you need to remember is that they added, subtracted, whatever, like personnel teams from whatever started around Hoffenheim is all under the parent club Heidenheimer Sportbund. So that's what you have to remember while we're doing the rest of this. Something that was interesting is in 1933, due to being a workers' club, as we mentioned about the engineers part, the Nazis actually folded the club. So there's no games between 1933 and 1946 that they were playing. They didn't exist. And then in 2007, the club officially split off from Heidenheimer Sportbund, which we just referenced. And because of that, they did that because they, like, you basically have to get a license to be in DFB. And there's a whole bunch of, we can go into that one day of, like, what it takes to do that. But all you need to know is because of reasons, they had to split off from Heidenheimer Sportbund. I think Heidenheimer Sportbund still exists. They do stuff like swimming, gymnastics, tennis, and stuff like that. But they don't. Heidenheimer Sportbund doesn't do soccer. So that's something to remember. And then obviously the big one is 2023, which was this year. They're promoted to the Bundesliga for the first time ever. So that's why we are talking about them, and that's the key thing to that we're going to go into today. So where is Heidenheim? Let's click that. This is where Heidenheim is. You may notice it's kind of a small town. It's in the middle of proverbial nowhere. It's not exactly like a big town. It's super, super small. And they're in, I think it's hard to kind of see, but they're in the state that Stuttgart is in, called Baden-Württemberg. That's something that you have to remember later as well. But yeah, they're a really small town. I mean, we'll go into how many people are there. I think I put that in there. But it looks really nice. I was looking at the pictures and stuff. Pretty beautiful. I think it's pretty, like, typical of Baden-Württemberg, like, cities. There's, like, a lot of rolling hills, and it looks beautiful in the summer. This castle down here is actually Helen something. Oh man, I'm really fucking up the presentation already. I forgot what the castle's called. Hellenstein Castle. There we go. But that's like kind of a big castle for them. It's like really representative of their city. There's like a museum in it. That's something to remember as well. Some more city fun facts. So the full name is Heidenheim an der Brenz. The Brenz is the name of the river that is nearby. I think it even runs through it. They speak Schwäbisch, which if you've heard Schwäbisch, I tried to find a video of Schwäbisch. You'll know it when you hear it. There's a lot of les in it, and it sounds like really like drawn out. But they speak the same dialect as like Stuttgart and a lot of other cities in the state. Their permanent settlement, you could go as far back as 1,300 BC, which is kind of crazy when you think about like U.S. history, because like, I mean, there were people here obviously, but like, I don't think America really recognizes it. But there's plenty of things you can see about what like Heidenheim was like in 1,300 BC. There's actually, we're gonna go down a little bit. It was the location of like a Roman cavalry castle. Which is actually the Ultras group for Heidenheim, get their name from Castle Aquilia, I think is how you pronounce it. But that's like the name of the one of the Ultras groups for Heidenheim. It has less than 50,000 residents, and for comparison's sake, that puts us on par with Jeffersonville, Indiana. Shout out to Jeffersonville, Indiana. But like, that's the kind of size of town we're talking, right? It's not like even like a Green Bay. Like Green Bay is way bigger than this. It's like very, very small. Obviously, it's the HQ of the Voith group, which we talked about earlier. That's the engineers are the one that founded the team. It was like a company team. I thought this was funny. Any fencers in chat? It hosts the largest and most competitive EP, or I think it's a pay fencing competition in the world. Like people. I was reading a bunch about this. It's like more important than the Olympics. Like for this brand of fencing, this is like the biggest competition. It's like fencing Super Bowl. They host a Shepherd Run, which is funny, and they have like a very renowned opera festival. And then you might have seen it when I was clicking through stuff, but they have a very, very successful baseball team. They have not missed the playoffs since 2001. I actually wanted to just first react on what their jerseys would be like. Oh yeah, see, it's like Voith, the Voith group that They're like one of the biggest companies in the city, and we'll get into this logo later. That's important as well. If you have any questions or anything too, you can just drop them in chat too. I feel like this is like school. Anyway, so let's get into the actual soccer. We're kind of skipping around there. Voith Arena, which that name pops up again, is has been recently expanded to 15,000 capacity. For comparison's sake, what used to be the smallest club, you know how like people talk about Union Berlin and their arena, and it's like, oh, so small and so cozy. This is a good 7,000 seats less than Union Berlin Stadium, so it's going to be very cozy when you see games in it. Yeah, even like a lot of MLS specific, soccer specific stadiums are bigger than this stadium is. You can even see from the bottom, it's very, very intimate atmosphere. Historically, this site has kind of, oh, excuse me. Voice crack. Let me boo myself for that, actually. Here's my boo button. Alright. Historically, this has kind of like always been the site of it. It used to be, where is it? This ground was first made in 1972. It started out with 700 seats. So that's something that even crazier. Like, it really does, you'll really do see that this is like a club where you can see it growing from year to year. Historically, this has always been the minimum, they've always met like the minimum expectations. Like, if you don't know, when a club gets promoted, part of the licensing and things like that is you have to meet club, like the league standards. And like when they got promoted to third division, they had to be 10,000. That they had to meet that. And same with second league, they had to be 15,000. So they're like just at that minimum. It is the highest stadium in Germany at 1,820 feet above sea level. For comparison's sake, Denver is like 5,000 feet, so it's not like super high up. Like it's not going to be like, oh, how are players going to get oxygen? But it's just a fun fact. The stadium actually, for the bulk of its existence, was actually owned by the city of Hoffenheim. Let me boo myself for that. I was wondering how long it was going to take me to do that. Why do I always... Anyway. The city of Heidenheim owned like the ground and all of that until the club bought it for 2 million euros. Funnily enough, because they made the semi-final of the Pokal, so they used that money to buy the stadium from the city. So that, I think it's like still kind of split, but like the city doesn't like entirely maintain it and things like that. They have that now. And there's an interesting quote from the chairman of Heidenheim about when they bought that. So it was renovated in 2009, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Funnily enough, you can kind of see them going through the leagues at that point. Like, you can't buy a 25-car parking lot in NYC for 2 million. Yeah, that's the other crazy thing is 2 million euros. And, like, there's a lot of math that goes into it of, like the fees and stuff they had to pay. But, yeah, like, 2 million euros in New York City would get you, like, one of the squares in the sidewalk. Maybe. And the fun fact actually is why you can see on the top there's solar panels. When they renovated it last, they actually wanted it to be the first energy neutral stadium in Germany, but they were beat out by Augsburg. So the away section also has 800 seats. So if you're planning on going to Heidenheim now, those away tickets are going to be pretty competitive. A 2-bedroom condo, yeah. Oh my goodness. Like even depending on the neighborhood, maybe some. Chicago's kind of like that too. All right, but for you Premier League fans, you're like, what about the trophies? Well, I have very bad news for you. But first, we need to explain the DFB Pokal because that's going to provide some context. So if you don't know how the DFB Pokal, what goes into it, and how you qualify for it, there's 2 pots. So if you're in the first league, you make it no matter what. You don't have to, like, do anything. The first pot also includes the top 16 teams from the second league for like last year. So for this year, wherever you finish last season, that's your. If you're in the top 16 from last season, this season you'll be in pot one. Pot two are the bottom four teams from the second league. The top three Dritte Liga teams, so usually they're going to be promoted, like that kind of stuff. And then 24 amateur teams from regional cup competition. So, for example, these cup competitions, you have to be lower than the third, like at or lower than the third league to be in these competitions. And they mainly exist, yes, for competition, but for qualification into DFB Pokal. So, for example, like you'll see, like Maccabi Berlin, they're in it this year. All of these teams that you see that are bolded are in it this year. That provides some context for what we're gonna talk about next. 2.27 million USD. Meanwhile, new NFL stadiums cost $1 billion with the B. Yeah, like the cost, like for Heidenheim, they would have never been able to do that if they did not make the Pokal, or they didn't go that deep into the Pokal. They would have never been able to do it. So it's kind of crazy to like you said, like put it in contact with NFL stadiums. So this is their accomplishments. Landesliga Württemberg champs. For context, this is like fifth tier, the fifth tier in Germany. They won that in 1991 and 1998. They were promoted 1998, 2004, 2008, 2009, 2014, and obviously 2023. And then the WFV Cup. That's what this is. So that's the state regional cup that they were playing in. That is what this is. They won that in 1965, 2008, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. So they've been, relatively speaking, they've been ass. But not really also. I want you to note this chart real quick. You see here, this is 1992. Do you notice anything about their path forward? Yes, you are correct. They have not been relegated since 1992. That's fucking crazy. They have not faced relegation at any point since the 90s, early 90s. You can see right now, like Landesliga, that's the sixth tier. Verbandsliga, Württemberg, that's what we were just talking about. That's like the fifth tier. So they've gone through these leagues very, very quickly, and over time, they've just continued to get better. This is like one of the craziest things I've ever seen. You really do have to like marvel at this, that they have not been relegated at any point since the 90s. So this is more recent. If you remember, they split off from Heidenheim Sportsbund around here, which is when they like started to get in the fourth league, so they pretty much had to do it. But you see this name, Frank Schmidt. I want you to hang on to that before we talk about this. The other thing that you have to consider about the graph we literally just saw is that they have never placed lower than 13th at any point in this recent stretch. That's also very, very crazy. So they're usually in the top half of the table in any league they've been to. So who is Frank Schmidt? And this is we're starting to get into what makes this club special. He was actually born in Heidenheim in 1974. He was in like a suburb, but for all intents and purposes, it's Heidenheim. He played for Heidenheim Sportsbund before they split in 2004 and 2007. He was actually the captain for 2 of those years. And the year Heidenheim separated from Heidenheim Sportsbund, so that's 2007. There was actually like 6 games where they're still where they're FC Heidenheim, and that original coach was still there. But for all intents and purposes, He was like one of the first he basically might as well be the first coach for Heidenheim FC. But as when they separated, he was hired as manager, and he is still the manager. This is probably wrong math, right? Hold on. If I do this wrong, I want everyone in chat to boo me. It's 16 years. Alright, boo me. Oh my god. I'm getting booed on my own show. 16 years. But it doesn't matter, right? He's the longest tenured manager, I think, even, or like the second longest in the first 2 tiers of Europe. Or like the top 5 leagues in Europe. But he's been there forever. He has a 45% win rate in 586 games, which, if you think about that, is nuts. Like, if you even have a 50% win rate as a manager, that's like, yo, this guy is like a football genius. Average EPL manager right now is 18 months. Yeah, he's even longer. Like, we talk about Freiburg coach. He's longer than him by 4 years. So he's been popping off in this position. He was in a documentary called Trainer, which I actually want to watch on stream. I'm figuring out how to do that. But like Jurgen Klopp was in it, and he's in it as well. And as I said before, under him, the club has never finished lower than 13th, and they have never been relegated. How does he compare to Freiburg coach? We'll talk about that when we get to squad. Lower teams even go through 3 managers in 1 year in EPL. Yeah, so, I mean, really, if you think about it, there's kind of no reason to fire him because he's so good at his job. But yeah, even just like some clubs just want a new manager as they like go through the ranks. Heidenheim has all their faith in him. In fact, the chairman actually said we would give him a lifetime contract if we could. So that's how much faith the board has in him. And like, even if they get relegated this year, they're not going to fire him. Famous people. So we already talked about Frank Schmidt. We have Polly the mascot, story later on that. But here are some... There's not a whole lot of players that, like, stick out from their past. Florian Niederlechner is a big one, actually, honestly. Horst Blankenberg is pretty big if you know, like, German football history. Robert Andrich, who is on Leverkusen, I think, right now. Why mess with success? You're 100% right, Yellow Pancake. Like, they haven't been relegated since the 90s. Like, there's literally no reason for them to fire him. Robert Glatzel, that's a name if you also follow German football a lot. Nicholas Dorsch, and then Mark Schottnader, who has been at the club as long as Frank Schmidt, and he's currently an assistant manager. The current squad, obviously Frank Schmidt is the manager, but here are some standout players. Tim Kleindines. I'm going to get rocked for that pronunciation. But he scored 25 goals last season in the second league, so people are pretty excited for what he's going to do in the first league. Kevin Mueller, who is second in the goals scored category. Oh no, Jan Nicholas Beste is their second highest scorer from last season. But Patrick Meinke is their captain and their best center back. I looked into the other players. Like, obviously they're a strong squad. They won the second league last year. But in terms of, like, players that you must watch, I think we have to see who comes out in the first league. No offense to Heidenheim, but I mean that's just the case. So some other fun facts. So this is one of my favorite facts, and I think it really does put in. We're going to compare this perspective from RB Leipzig and Heidenheim. They both have done the same thing. They're only the second team to have played in the top 5 divisions in Germany. So what that means is they're the only 2 teams this century who have been in the 5th league, 4th league, 3rd league, 2nd league, and 1st league. Only 2. And they could not be more different. They really could not be more different. Their top 2 transfers in history are Tim, who we already who we already went through. He actually moved from Freiburg and then Ghent. He moved from Ghent. That's the second move there. His record departure is actually $6 million for Robert Glatzel, which is really big for a team that size. I wouldn't have thought that would be their base transfer, maybe like $3 million or $2 million. But they have an all-female ultra group, which I found pretty cool. Their biggest rival is VfR Aalen, but they're in the fourth tier, so obviously like they're never going to really play them unless it's like Pokal. That'd be pretty cool. They haven't been relegated since 1992. I feel like I've been beating that one to death. They're starting a women's team this year, which is pretty dope. And then they're the only team to win the the Württemberg Cup 4 years in a row. Alright, so time for a hot take. So we just talked about this first fact. Only the second team to have ever played in the top 5 division of Germany, and their opponent in that is RB Leipzig, who did it first. And like when RB Leipzig did it, they're like, well, they only rose through the ranks because they had $1 billion, right? They like had the backing of a multinational company. It's actually supposed to move, but it really didn't. Does Leipzig count? They do. I mean, yes, they do. As much as I hate to say it, that is still an accomplishment. So they're better than Leipzig since they got to the first Bundesliga with way less investment. That's summarizing what this is, but yes, you're 100% right. They got way less investment. So some things to think about, though, right? Like, I think when people talk about German soccer, they're like, oh, the right way is just not having any money at all. That's not the truth. Like, even this club that people really are going to look up to in this and, like, kind of use as, like, the perfect way to do things, their mascot's named after... Oh, my God. I need to turn down this. Oh, I'm going to resub that. It went to me. But thank you for the gifted sub, Most State Dazzle. I hope you're going to Dortmund. I'm going to Dortmund in Chicago. I don't know how to gift right now. I'll figure it out. But thank you for the gifted. Sorry to wait. We're actually, we are kind of at the end right now. But these recordings are on here for up to a week. And I'm actually saving them myself to put them on YouTube. You're not. Damn, that sucks. But the mascot, so we're talking about, just to catch people up, or most say dazzle up, we're talking about Heidenheim and how they are the second team to have played in all 5 divisions of German soccer, with Leipzig being first. They both have done these very, very, very impressive things, but they could not be more different. But the right way does not necessarily mean, like, fuck all sponsors, right? This mascot is named after a local entrepreneur who used to be the kit sponsor. Their mascot is named after a businessman. And they're partially funded by that voice group that we've seen over and over and over again. They're a big, big name in the company. Like SAP for Hoffenheim, voice group is like that, and they're $1 billion company. But the difference is, if you look at all Heidenheim sponsors, which I did, and it's a long list, they're almost exclusively local. Like, you'll see their sponsors, and it'll be like Burger King. And you're like, all right, well, that's not local. It's the local Burger King. And if it's like, I think, what was on there? Like, Sennheiser or something like that's on there. But it's the local Sennheiser. They're all, like, local sponsors. They're not multi-billion-dollar corporations like you see with Bayer Leverkusen and Hoffenheim and Leipzig and Wolfsburg. It's not like that. In fact, when the club was redoing their stadium most recently, they used the expansion funding to build a fan hangout, something for the supporters to kind of like take over as their own, which is wild. They didn't have to do that, right? They don't have to. Only teams that are really connected with their community would be able to like think about that. You know what I mean? Like that would be like fucking. I'm just gonna use the Chicago Bears. Like the Chicago Bears building a new stadium in Arlington Heights, and they spend 10% of it on just like a place for Bears fans to watch games. That's not a restaurant. Like, Wasn't their sponsor a local milk company a few years ago? I think that's Freiburg. Their old kit sponsor was like a bandage company, which is actually the person who owns that is what the mascot's named after. And then they bought the stadium for the city, and the chairman of the club said this: "We have succeeded in clear separation between professional football and the municipal task of the city." Now, this is something to really think about in terms of NFL. How many how many stadiums get built, right? And they are completely funded by the city. It's a way for them to save money. They don't have to spend money on upkeep or anything like that, and they just kind of let tax dollars go into that. They don't want that. They want to not be a burden on the city and be something positive in the community. That really stuck out to me, that he would say that. In fact, the person that said that, Holger Svanwald, was the head of soccer department in 1994. So he'd been with the club since 1994 till now. He was a head of soccer development as a 27-year-old who is still playing for the team. So when German people talk about the right way, right? You hear this with Leipzig and everything like that. You have two clubs that have done the same exact thing and went about it in two totally different ways. Like the Holger von Svanwald has said, it's good that people want 50+1. They could not be different clubs despite doing the exact fucking same thing. So that's kind of a wrap up. I did tease this on Twitter. I did not forget. We did not talk about the this is the coat of arms for the city of Heidenheim. It is self-described as a 15th century heathen. So these dudes were like the modern day version of the bearded man with the hat. In fact, who knows? Hipsters kind of don't exist anymore. But like maybe this will become a trend. This look might be. This is also where they get the colors from as well. And that is finito. The green corduroy hat is kind of a cool hat. Red mage hat. Yeah, right? This is like the white mage from Final Fantasy, but like, yeah, no, just straight up red mage. The club shop needs to offer that hat. They kind of do, actually. I would buy one of it. But yeah, that's oh, congrats to wait, what? Oh, it's me. That's the club. I mean, that's the episode. I didn't have anything else planned. One thing I will suggest, Shea Butter is doing a watch along for the Nigeria-Canada game for Women's World Cup. I would watch that. But yeah, other than that, let's see how the right way holds up, trying to keep up and compete in. So that's a good point. However, we have an example of the right way already in First League with Union Berlin. Are they going to beat Union Berlin? Probably not. Like that kind of. I think that's kind of a. Was it anomaly? And they're probably gonna get relegated. I mean, they just have way bigger of a mountain to overcome than like Union Berlin did getting promoted. But I only pointed it out just because I think for Germans and like the point of 50+1 is that part of it. That would be the ideal. I think most fans would want this out of their club as opposed to being in Champions League and being owned by Red Bull or some of the conglomerates that own stuff in the Premier League. But I wish them only the best. Yeah, I mean, it would be cool if they stay up. But, I mean, the way teams are looking right now, I feel like every team, other than, like, maybe Bremen, has kind of improved in this transfer window. And, like, Darmstadt got worse, too. So I think those two are probably going to get. We're going to do a Darmstadt profile probably next week. But, yeah, they've got a big task ahead of them. There's finally that line of the way it's meant to be, 100%. For sure, it's great to see. I want them to win, but the way D1 spends, yeah, I mean you're 100% right. Like we can look this up honestly. I would also highly recommend everyone bookmark this link. Capology, incredible website. This is their annual payroll for last year. This is their weekly payroll. That's maybe one player on Bayern's weekly payroll. they they've got a big mountain to climb. I think that's like very like if we even look to last year, right? For Bundesliga, let's see if this takes us there. Yeah, Bundesliga. Let's do Union Berlin. We just talked about them. Why didn't it take me there? That's wild. Yeah, I mean, you can just like kind of factor it in, but I do want to drive home this point. Why? Oh, because it's finances, not salaries. Boom! They have 4 times the weekly payroll last year, and this is the club everyone's like, oh, they don't have a whole lot of money. So yeah, I mean and they didn't really make a whole lot of moves in the summer so far. Obviously, they like what money do they really have? So yeah, it's gonna be tough for them to stay up. They're gonna have to hope that the players they have somehow turn it on, or like in the winter they make it far in like the Pokal and they are able to sign someone in the winter. But look at all those Germans on the squad. Wait for Heidenheim. Yeah, I mean that's the part of doing it the right way that I think is not good. Is like, oh, I want more Germans on the squad. I think that opens it up for nationalism, but that's neither here nor there. More than a lot of MLS teams, yeah. Thank you for doing these. Of course, we're gonna do Darmstadt next week, and you know they're not going to raise ticket prices because Germany. I think they're gonna inevitably have to, because I think they were talking about they were talking about expanding the stadium to like 25,000 and like that. Since they're not having the city help pay for it, they're gonna have to pay for it some way. Does the Bundesliga give any money to promoted teams beside TV rights? I don't think so. I would be shocked if they. I think the money they get for being in the first league just happens at the end of the first league season. But I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm gonna redeem myself real quick. I'm sorry. I know I said the show was gonna end like 10 minutes ago, but. What? Oh my god, what? Okay. How do you say this?
Tim Kleindienst Salary-Profile.
Kleindienst. There you go. Tim Kleindienst.
Tim Kleindienst Salary-Profile.
Salary Profile. And on that note, it's time to end. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed this profile. I spent a lot of time on these profiles. Oh, Voith is... Yeah. Yeah, they're like a manufacturing company, I think. Or like, yeah, something like that. But yeah, I put a lot of work into this. I'm going to put a lot of work into Darmstadt next week, who also were promoted. They didn't win the league because they wanted vacation right when it was clear they were promoted, so they lost the last game of the season. But yeah, I'm super excited to do weekly shows again. Yeah, we gotta do Darmstadt we gotta do a club profile for Darmstadt because they're playing their rival Frankfurt on the first game of the season. So we gotta look into that. But yeah. The show's going to be weekly now, so next week, I think we're going to do 7 p.m. from now on. We're not going to do 5:30 anymore, just for my Pacific people. I want to make sure that you guys are getting a good time too. But yeah, next week, same time, We're going to go over second league that's starting next week, and then we're going to do the Darmstadt profile. But thank you for all the new people watching. Hope you liked the episode, and yeah, we will catch you next week.
50 plus Döner. Unparteiisch, faktisch korrekt, moralisch integer.